The UFC. The UFC is the powerhouse of mixed martial arts, the organization that took a niche, underground competition, and turned it into a global sports empire. When it first launched in 1993, it was nothing like the polished, highly regulated product we know today. It was marketed and known as a raw and often brutal experiment to determine the most effective martial art in the world. There were no gloves, no weight classes, and almost no rules. Eye gouging and groin strikes were legal in the earliest events. The matchups were wild. A 400-pound sumo wrestler could face a lean kickboxer, and a karate master could fight a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, and the results were as unpredictable as they were shocking. The spectacle quickly caught attention, but also drew criticism from politicians, athletic commissions, and mainstream media who labeled it human cockfighting. The UFC was even banned in several U.S. states, and at one point it looked like the promotion might not survive. But instead of disappearing, it adapted. By the early 2000s, the UFC began introducing structured rules like mandatory gloves, timed rounds, and multiple weight divisions. The adoption of the unified rules of MMA transformed the sport from a chaotic free-for-all into a legitimate, commission-sanctioned competition. Once regulation took hold, the level of skill skyrocketed. No longer was it just style versus style. Fighters began cross-training, combining wrestling, boxing, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, and more into a single, well-rounded skill set. This evolution brought in a new generation of elite athletes, and the UFC capitalized on it by building larger events, securing global TV deals, and hosting fight cards in sold-out arenas across every continent. Today, the UFC is a global brand recognized by sports fans everywhere. Pay-per-view events regularly draw millions of viewers, and its stars have become household names. Champions like George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva, John Jones, and Khabib defined their eras with dominance and skill. Conor McGregor transcended MMA entirely, becoming one of the most famous athletes in the world and drawing record-breaking numbers to the sport. And every year, new contenders rise up, keeping the competition fierce and the storylines fresh. The UFC's influence is so massive that every other MMA organization is inevitably compared to it. For fighters, the UFC belt isn't just a championship. It's a symbol that you've reached the absolute pinnacle of the sport. Whether you love it or criticize it, the UFC remains the standard-bearer of mixed martial arts. It's where the biggest fights happen, where the most legendary moments are made, and for many, it's the ultimate destination in a fighter's career. PFL. The PFL, also known as Professional Fighters League, is one of the newest major players in MMA, but it has already carved out a unique place in the sport. Launched in 2018, the PFL set itself apart immediately by doing something no other big MMA organization does: running its events in a true sports season format. Instead of booking fights solely based on hype, popularity, or rankings, the PFL has an actual season, playoffs, and championship, just like you'd see in traditional sports leagues. Here's how it works. Fighters compete in a regular season, earning points for wins and bonus points for finishing their fights early. The more dominant your performance, the more points you collect. At the end of the season, the top fighters in each division move on to the playoffs. Win your way through that bracket, and you're fighting in the championship finals, where the stakes are massive. Every champion in the PFL earns $1 million prize, one of the biggest guaranteed payouts in the sport. This format changes the way fans and fighters approach MMA. Every fight matters. There's no room to take a night off because every win, every round, and every second inside the cage can be the difference between a championship run or going home early. It rewards consistency, endurance, and performance over time, not just a single viral knockout. And because fighters often compete multiple times in a single year, rivalries can develop fast, making the season even more exciting. The PFL has also been quick to embrace innovation. They were one of the first major MMA organizations to implement smart cage technology, giving live in-fight stats like punch speed, strike count, and cage control time. This adds a new layer of insight for fans watching at home, helping them understand not just who's winning, but how they're winning. Their roster blends up-and-coming prospects with established stars. Kayla Harrison, a two-time Olympic judo gold medalist, has become the face of the women's lightweight division, dominating nearly everyone she's faced. Other big names have joined the league, like former UFC champions and contenders Anthony Pettis, Rory McDonald, and Fabricio Werdum, bringing credibility and veteran experience to the roster. In just a few short years, the PFL has gone from a relatively unknown startup to one of the top global MMA promotions, securing major broadcast deals and sponsorships while steadily growing its fan base. Its mix of structure, innovation, and high stakes gives it an identity completely different from the UFC, and that's exactly why fans and fighters are paying attention. But while the PFL is making waves as the sport's new innovator, it still has a long way to go to match the history and legacy of another major promotion, one that has been a staple in MMA for over a decade and has hosted some of the most memorable fights outside the UFC. Bellator MMA has been a cornerstone of the sport for well over a decade, standing as one of the few organizations capable of competing with the UFC in terms of talent, production, and global reach. Founded in 2008, Bellator entered the scene with a vision that was different from anything else at the time. Like the PFL, Bellator MMA introduced a tournament-style format where fighters had to win multiple times in a single season to earn a title shot. This format gave fans a clear sense of stakes, created organic rivalries, and rewarded fighters for consistent performance. A refreshing approach in a sport where matchmaking can sometimes feel political. Over time, Bellator evolved beyond the tournament-only model, shifting to a more traditional event structure but without losing the spirit of competitive matchmaking. They struck a balance between building exciting fights for the fans and ensuring fighters had real opportunities to climb the rankings. That willingness to adapt helped Bellator stay relevant and continue to grow, even as the UFC dominated headlines. One of the things that has made Bellator so appealing to fighters is its openness. While some promotions are known for tight control over matchmaking and branding, Bellator has earned a reputation for giving fighters more freedom, both in how they present themselves and in the opportunities they're given. This has attracted high-profile athletes who wanted a different path to success, including legends and former UFC champions like Chris Cyborg, Ryan Bader, and Yoel Romero. These names brought credibility to the roster, but Bellator never relied solely on big signings. They have also excelled at building stars from the ground up. Michael "Venom" Page is one of the best examples. A flashy, unpredictable striker whose highlight reel knockouts turned him into a fan favorite worldwide. AJ McKee's rise was another defining storyline, as he went undefeated for years, won the featherweight title, and cemented himself as one of the brightest prospects in MMA. Then there's Patricio "Pitbull" Freire, a fighter who has dominated multiple divisions and is widely regarded as one of the most accomplished champions in the sport, regardless of promotion. Bellator has also pushed beyond the United States, hosting major events in countries across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. They've tapped into passionate fan bases in places like Ireland, the UK, and Italy, selling out arenas and bringing MMA to markets that the UFC hadn't fully explored. Their willingness to experiment has also led to unique crossover events like MMA versus kickboxing matchups and high-profile co-promotions with Rizin in Japan, creating matchups fans would never see elsewhere. Despite not having the same mainstream reach as the UFC, Bellator has built a strong identity, a mix of elite-level fights, exciting prospects, and global expansion. For many fighters, it's the perfect blend of opportunity and exposure, offering the chance to compete at the highest level without being lost in the shuffle of a massive roster. For fans, it's a place where legends can extend their careers and fresh talent can break through on big stages. Now, as Bellator continues to evolve and grow its international footprint, it stands shoulder to shoulder with other major MMA organizations. But almost no MMA organization stood a chance against this one in the early days. Pride. Before the UFC became the global powerhouse it is today, there was Pride Fighting Championships, an organization in Japan that, at its peak, wasn't just competing with the UFC, it was the biggest MMA promotion in the world. Launched in 1997, Pride didn't just put on fights, it put on spectacles. These were massive, stadium-filling events that regularly drew crowds of 40,000 to 50,000 people, and sometimes even over 70,000, all there to watch the very best fighters in the world collide on the grandest stage imaginable. The production value was unlike anything else in combat sports history. Fighters didn't just walk to the ring, they arrived. Elaborate entrances, live music, fireworks, giant video screens, and dramatic lighting made every fighter introduction feel like a movie scene. The Japanese audience treated MMA with a level of respect rarely seen elsewhere, often watching in near silence during the action, only to erupt in cheers for a clean strike, a slick submission, or a display of heart. And Pride delivered matchups that are still talked about decades later. During the late 1990s and early 2000s, its roster was arguably the strongest collection of talent MMA has ever seen. Fedor Emelianenko, widely regarded as the greatest heavyweight in history, went unbeaten for years in Pride. Wanderlei Silva terrorized the middleweight division with his relentless Muay Thai and savage aggression. Antonio Rodrigo was the ultimate comeback artist, surviving punishment to secure miraculous submissions. Rampage Jackson and countless others made their names under the Pride banner. Many fans still argue that Pride's talent pool at its height was deeper than the UFC's. Part of Pride's identity came from its unique rule set. Instead of a cage, fights took place in a boxing-style ring, changing the dynamics of grappling and positioning. The rules allowed devastating techniques banned in modern MMA. Soccer kicks to the head, stomps, and knees to the head of a grounded opponent. This created an aggressive, fast-paced style of fighting that thrilled fans and played perfectly into the skill sets of many Pride athletes. The organization also judged fights as a whole, not round by round, which encouraged fighters to focus on overall dominance rather than stealing individual rounds. Pride was also famous for its tournaments, especially its Grand Prix events. These multi-fight competitions could see a fighter step into the ring more than once in a single night. They produced legendary moments, such as Shogun Rua's dominant run through the 2005 middleweight Grand Prix, or Fedor's triumphs over the best heavyweights in the world. But Pride's meteoric rise eventually faced a steep decline. By the mid-2000s, reports of financial troubles and alleged ties to organized crime began to damage its reputation and scare away key business partners. In 2007, the UFC's parent company Zuffa bought Pride, effectively ending its run as an independent organization. Many of its biggest stars, from Rampage Jackson to Shogun Rua, moved over to the UFC, finally giving fans the dream matchups they had debated for years. Even though Pride has been gone for more than 15 years, its influence is still woven into MMA's DNA. Its fighters went on to shape the sport for years after the promotion closed. Its rule set still sparks debates among hardcore fans, and its iconic moments are replayed and remembered as some of the greatest in combat sports history. Among the promotions making the loudest noise in recent years, one has emerged from Europe with a different kind of energy: packed stadiums, passionate fans, and a unique presentation that's capturing attention across the MMA world. Oktagon. Oktagon MMA is one of the fastest rising names in mixed martial arts, and it's carving out its own identity in an increasingly competitive landscape. Based in Europe with its heart in the Czech Republic and Slovakia, Oktagon has grown from a small regional promotion into a major force that's now being talked about on the international stage. In just a few years, it has gone from hosting small shows for local fans to putting on massive productions that rival some of the biggest names in the sport. The first thing that sets Oktagon apart is the atmosphere. These aren't just fight nights, they're events. When you step into an Oktagon arena, you're greeted by packed stadiums, dramatic lighting, and walkouts that feel like grand entrances at a world-class sporting final. The fans aren't just there to watch fights. They're deeply invested in the fighters, the rivalries, and the storylines. The energy inside an Oktagon event is electric, often rivaling and sometimes surpassing what you see at major UFC cards. A big reason for their rise is their approach to building fights. Instead of simply matching big names against each other, Oktagon focuses on long-term storytelling. Rivalries are developed over months. Fighters are introduced to the audience not just as athletes, but as personalities with backstories and motivations. This strategy has helped create homegrown stars like Carlos Vemola, a former UFC fighter who has become one of the Czech Republic's biggest sporting icons, and David Kozma, a fan-favorite welterweight champion known for his flashy pink hair, entertaining fight style, and grit inside the cage. These fighters have become household names in their home countries, and their popularity helps sell out arenas. Innovation is another area where Oktagon thrives. They've brought fresh ideas to the sport, most notably the Tip Sport Game Changer, a €1 million European MMA tournament that gathers top fighters from across the continent in a year-long bracket. The stakes are clear, the prize is massive, and the format keeps fans coming back to follow every round. They've also embraced crossover fights, matching MMA fighters against boxers, kickboxers, and even celebrities from other sports. These high-profile experiments bring in new audiences while still keeping the MMA core strong. Oktagon's expansion isn't limited to live events. They've invested heavily in digital reach, making their fights accessible worldwide through streaming platforms, building strong social media engagement, and producing behind-the-scenes content that draws fans deeper into the sport. Their branding is sharp, their marketing is modern, and their ability to connect with fans has allowed them to grow well beyond their original markets. While they're still relatively unknown to casual MMA fans outside Europe, that's changing quickly. As the European MMA scene explodes in popularity, Oktagon is positioning itself to be the flagship organization for the region, a place where fighters can become stars without ever needing to fight in the UFC. For European fighters, Oktagon offers a platform with high production value, strong competition, and passionate fan support. From humble beginnings to sold-out arenas, Oktagon MMA has shown that with the right mix of presentation, storytelling, and innovation, you can capture the imagination of an entire region and start making waves globally. One Championship. Founded in 2011 and based in Singapore, One Championship has quickly grown into one of the largest combat sports promotions in the world. But it's done so by taking a path very different from the UFC or Bellator. Instead of focusing solely on MMA, One Championship has built its identity around celebrating martial arts in all its forms. Their events feature a mix of MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, submission grappling, and even hybrid rules bouts, all under the same banner. They have leaned heavily into martial arts tradition, presenting its athletes not just as fighters, but as role models. The promotion often emphasizes values like respect, honor, humility, and discipline in its marketing, positioning itself as more than just a fight business. That philosophy, combined with the incredible level of talent on its roster, has helped it stand out in a sport that's often dominated by trash talk and pre-fight drama. Its events are broadcast to over 150 countries, and the production style blends Eastern martial arts pageantry with modern sports presentation. The walkouts are grand, the commentary focuses on skill and respect, and the rule set is tailored for excitement. One Championship uses a global weight system that bases divisions on fighters' walking weight, reducing extreme weight cutting. They also allow certain techniques banned elsewhere, for example, knees to the head of a grounded opponent, which can completely change the dynamics of a fight. The roster is filled with elite names across multiple sports. MMA champions like Demetrius Johnson, Bibiano Fernandes, and Angela Lee have all made history inside the One Circle. In striking, legends like Rodtang and Superbon have drawn massive audiences, while submission grappling stars like Gordon Ryan and the Ruotolo brothers have introduced a new generation of fans to high-level jiu-jitsu. They have also become a true global platform for fighters from regions that historically had limited exposure on the world stage. Athletes from Asia, the Middle East, and even parts of Europe and South America have used the promotion to build massive followings in their home countries. And because One Championship doesn't just focus on MMA, a fighter in Muay Thai or kickboxing can become just as much of a headliner as an MMA world champion. The promotion has staged events in major cities across Asia, from Singapore to Tokyo to Bangkok, and in recent years has begun expanding more aggressively into North America, including hosting its first US event in 2023. With a unique blend of combat sports, a global roster, and a strong cultural brand, One Championship has positioned itself as a true alternative to the UFC model, not by copying it, but by doing something entirely its own. And that's what makes them such a fascinating part of the MMA landscape. It's proof that there's more than one way to build a major fight promotion, and as the sport continues to grow, the variety these organizations bring only makes MMA more exciting for fans worldwide.